You're listening to the Into the Woods podcast with your hosts, Dermot and Michael. Let's get into it.
Wonderful chase by Shaw.
Cox again. I cannot believe it. Dacos nearly runs out of room. He's goal. Jamie Elliott has won the game of footy for this famous club. Slap for Nick Dacos. He's going to be the hero. The little champ is going to pick the winner.
Here's the Degoe moment. He unloads. Bang! You need your stars. And Collingwood stars just went and wrenched the cup back.
If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. For Spotify and Apple listeners, a 5-star rating would be greatly appreciated. Make sure you hit the bell icon on any of those platforms to be notified as soon as new episodes are released. You can find us on X at Into the Woods Pod and on Instagram at Into the Woods Pod 10. Thanks for your ongoing support by helping the podcast grow. Go Pies! Welcome to the July edition of the Into the Woods panel show. I'm your host Dermot, and for the next hour or so, we'll be talking about all things Collingwood. Once again, I'm joined by Michael. How are you, Mick?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Looking forward to tonight. I've got what I think may be a compelling idea I want to put to the panel later on. I'll be interested to hear their thoughts.
Okay, I love it. Well, we'll get straight into the panel, and well, you already may know our first panel member from his Instagram and TikTok reels. You can find him on both of those platforms under the name Paddy's Pies. Welcome, Pat.
Hey guys, beautiful intro. That's probably the best intro I've ever had. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you. What do you reckon you're best known for on TikTok? Is it the hot pies video? Wasn't it Wallop that posted that? That's the first time I saw you.
Just so funny. My wife was like, "You talk so much crap about Collingwood to everyone, and instead of talking it to me, just talk it to the internet." So I kind of hit that off. There's a few controversial things I've said. Maybe I think the interstate video that I put saying that we actually travel as much as a few other teams, that got a few people offside, but that was pretty good.
I do remember that one. Yeah.
Good.
All right. Well, our second panelist, she formerly worked behind the scenes at Fox Footy and is now currently working in the Channel 7 sports department. She can be found most weeks cheering on the Pies at the G. Welcome, Paige.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Very excited to be here.
Yes, we're very happy to have you, and we'll ask you a few questions a little bit later about your job. I know Michael's pretty interested, but we'll hold off for now, and we'll welcome our third and final panel member. He's a bit of a veteran on this show now. You may know him as the VFL reporter for both the Pies Nation podcast and, of course, the Into the Woods podcast. Joining us for his second appearance, welcome back, Serg.
How you going, guys? Pleasure to be here and in esteemed company. Thank you.
No, it's always good to have you, mate. You're basically a part of the Into the Woods family now, so I'm sure it won't be the last time we have you on either.
I don't even want to be part of the Into the Woods family.
Well, we're happy to replace you with Serg full time if you want.
I enjoy the banter, boys. Let's not change the cast. It's good.
Right.
All right. Well, Serg, as you know, being on the June edition of the panel show, we like to get to know our members. You've already told us a lot about your history as a Collingwood supporter, so we can't really hear much more. Otherwise, we'll probably be here all night. You have some amazing stories. So just for the time being, kick your feet up and we'll listen to what Paige and Pat have to say. And they're just simply the same questions as last time. So I'm not sure if you guys watched the previous episode, but pretty simple questions. And we'll start with Pat.
Yep.
So I'm keen to know, how long have you been supporting the Pies and how did you become a Collingwood supporter? And probably while you're at can you give us a bit of an insight into your earliest memory as a Collingwood fan?
Sure. So I guess, how long have I been supporting the Pies? Well, I'm 40 in October, and it's I'm 3 months out from that. So 39 years and 9 months I've been a Collingwood supporter. And I guess like many of us, we're born into it, right? So had no choice, but certainly grateful for that, considering I think I saw a stat that we've been in a prelim 2 years for the last 15 odd years, which is pretty crazy. But I do recall my dad saying to me, you don't have to go for Collingwood, but that's the only way you'll be going to the footy. So, so I guess that was a fair deal, right? In terms of, I guess, an insight, I remember going to a few of those family days early on, like I think it was early 90s at Vic Park, and all the players were obviously around the ground. And I remember getting some signatures from Scotty Russell and Tony Francis. I was probably 5 or 6. And I remember my dad walking me around, getting some more signatures. And he pointed out a guy, like an older gentleman, but he was dressed really nicely. He had a suit on, and I remember a Collingwood tie. And he goes, "Do you know who that is?" And I said, "Well, it doesn't look like Peter Dacos or Damien Wonka, so I'm not sure like who it is, right?" And he said, "That's Bob Rose." Oh. And I said, "Wow." And he, like, my dad loved Bob Rose, legend of Bob Rose. And I had a photo with him. I can't find that photo now. I've moved a few times, but that was one of my fondest early memories of being at Vic Park for the family day and having a photo with Bobby Rose.
Wow, that's amazing. Did you, maybe it was a little bit after your time, but were you ever a part of Buckley's Brigade? That clinic for the kids. Like, I'm about 10 years younger than you, but I was a part of that. I'm not sure how long that was around for.
Buckley's Brigade, that would have, it rings a bell, right? But
Buckley's Brigade, I used to take Dermot to, and it was kind of late 90s, early 2000s. And you go to Victoria Park and Buckley would be holding court, and there would be
having a kick,
like 400 kids, all with number 5 on their back, except for one. Yeah. One was Dermot, who I forced him to have number 17 on his back, Scotty Burns.
Scotty Burns.
Yeah. Right. Partly just to be different, but also, I think I was a big Burns fan. So, it would have been, you were probably a bit old for that, Pat, I would have thought.
I think I might have missed out on that.
Exactly.
I love Scotty Burns too, but Jesus, like, all I wanted was Bucks. Who says no to their 6-year-old son? Oh, I want Buckley's number. No. Jesus.
It's probably easier to find you in the crowd, right? So.
All right. Paige, same question to you. How long have you been supporting the Pies, and how did you become a supporter? And an early memory as well.
Yeah, look, I think the stories they're all pretty similar, aren't they? I think I had a Collingwood jumper before I had a name. So, my dad's another dyed in the wool, Collingwood man through and through, and as is the bloodline would dictate. Myself and my siblings had no other choice in the matter. Lucky for me, I was quite happy with that decision. But I've grown up just adoring football, Collingwood, obviously. And growing up, I'm about to turn 37 myself, so I have those early recollections of, going down to Vic Park on the Saturday. There used to be this little milk bar on Johnson Street, and back in those days when we got to Vic Park, we'd get there early so we could watch the the Rezzies play, but also we couldn't afford seats or memberships really at that point, but we could get in, and I was free, or it was a couple of bucks to get in, and couldn't see. But my dad, we'd always go to this milk bar on Johnson Street and get a milk crate, and I'd be there in my Collingwood jumper, number 5 on the back, the old headband, and the jumpers are probably around my ankles because I've got to still wear it when I'm 18, and so I'd take this milk crate in so I could stand on it and watch the game. And then my dad would always say, we take it back so we can go and pick it up next week. And it just got into this rhythm that they would have my name on this special milk crate for me every week, and a little bag of lollies in there and a bag of pistachios for dad. And that would be the weekly tradition. But I think, growing up, just, adoring the Pies is a really, I think, for us that, really associate with Collingwood, it's just this weekly experience of going through the motions. And in the early to mid 90s and really into sort of the late 90s, I suppose, after 1990, we were an atrocious side. We didn't have a lot to cheer about. And we really maxed out the list after 1990. And even then, they were such formative years for me. But it didn't matter. I just loved the atmosphere. I loved going, and it didn't matter that we were getting, smacked from pillar to post all throughout the 90s. I just loved being there. And, I remember I've got a really early recollection of the MCG. We went to a game once, and across from Jollymont Station, there used to be an old tab. And there's a little car park sort of just in there. There's a little secret car park a lot of sort of Melbourne supporters know about. And we were coming out of there, and I've got my footy, and as we were going to cross the road, this bloke walks out, with a duffel bag over his shoulder. He's got the Collingwood tracksuit on. It's bloody Mick McGuan. Having a dart. He's just had a couple of bets. He's on his way to the game. I said, Mickey, can I kick the footy to you? So this is about 97, I reckon, maybe 98. And he's like, yeah, go on then. Yep. So we're kicking it, on Wellington Parade, really. And I hit him with a nice drop punt right out in front. I don't think he was expecting it. And he thought, shit, you get a game in our side. We're that bad at the moment. So I remember sort of that moment, and he signed my jumper, and always loved Mickey McGuan growing up as well. I mean, everyone loved Bucks and a few others, but I just adored him and Sav and Pebbles when he came along later. Russell, Francis, Banks, those guys, I just loved them. So, I feel fortunate to be part of that generation that we saw a lot of crap football, a lot of hard times, all of that, and to sort of come out the other side with 2010 was just really, really, really special, and again in 23. So still to this day, so my dad's 70. He and I still go to the football together every single week, and have done since I was about 6 months old. So it's a continuous tradition, and now my son comes along, and it's nice to have a couple of generations in the Ponsford stand every week.
Yeah, nice. That's a great story. That Mick McGuan one, I love that. He's a great bloke. We talked to him in the preseason, and just a really generous guy. Happy to give up his time. How did you go when he moved to Carlton? Do you remember that?
Oh God! Well, like all of us, you just hate Carlton, and you love to hate Carlton, and I get as much enjoyment out of Carlton losing as I do Collingwood winning, honestly. And
Man,
I had a poster of him on my wall, and when he left, I tore it down, and Dad let me light it on fire, and we were pretty upset. Yeah, I was devastated. I cried my eyes out when that happened, but he had a shit career there anyway. It didn't matter. So as long as we get his son in a couple of months' time, that's all that matters.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Well, we'll touch on our rivalry with Carlton a little bit later on, but we'll go on to the next question and straight back to Pat. What is your favourite memory outside of the premierships?
There's a couple, I guess, but probably taking my two kids to their first games. So that was pretty special. I remember the eldest, he went to the G. We went to the G and watched Gold Coast. We lost that game, which was pretty disappointing. My dad flew down from Queensland. It was all really beautiful weather, and we lost.
What year was that? I don't recall that.
I reckon that was at the G. He was 5 or 6. Might have been 22.
Yeah, right. Gee, I've obviously wiped that out of the memory bank.
We have all the games, right? Mm-hmm. And then Marvel for my youngest. But I guess in game, probably the best interstate game I've ever been to was my then 6-year-old. We drove up to Adelaide, 2023, watched Collingwood Port at the Adelaide Oval.
Yes.
That was
great win.
That was so good. My mate who lives in Adelaide got me some tickets in the Saka members. I don't know if that was a good thing, but I had my boy with me. So I was right next to the bench, and there was a lot of Port supporters. But when Billy got that goal on the boundary, wow, that was mental.
That was unreal. The whole lead up to that game, first v second, Hinkley saying, it's a great time to be, what was it, June premiers or something like that. Oh, mate, that was so sweet.
It was probably that time, like obviously hindsight's a good thing, but it was probably that time the way we played, we were up against it. We're at Adelaide Oval. It was probably the first time that I was like, we're actually on here for the flag. It was just a really tough game. That was definitely a good trip home. So.
Yeah, I'm sure. What about you, Paige? Favourite memory outside of the premierships?
Oh, look, there's a couple, I think, similar to Paddy. It's, when you take your your kids to their first game is just a really special moment. So my son, I took him when he was probably about 6 months old to see the game against Adelaide in 2023, where we won by a point at the G. So that was quite a special day. But I think outside of that, the 2018 prelim was just, you remember going into that game, with my dad, my uncle, and my cousins, and all our Collingwood crew, and just living on a prayer, really, just sort of living in hope that we can stop the machine then that was Richmond. And Mason Cox happened.
He did.
That was a tremendous night. Similarly, the 1 point victory over GWS in the prelim as well in 2023, just that
Massive
relief. I think about it now, I almost get emotional thinking about it, just having to hold a 1 point lead for 8 minutes and stoppage, and just the complete, panic, the anxiety, it was just rinsing around the ground, that everyone in the poncha stands just kind of standing up because they don't know how to sit or how long. Everyone's screaming, how long, and the siren, and just
have you ever heard a louder noise when that siren went? The stands were shaking. It was crazy.
It felt like the entire place was going to collapse. It was limbs everywhere, and there was just the screaming, the crying, everyone's on their seats, and John De Goey's streaming off the bench, and he was just every Collingwood supporter in that moment. Just really beautiful. But I still think of that Billy goal against Carlton. To knock them out of the finals and put us into the top 4 in 2022 after such an incredible season we'd put together before we went on that premiership run the next year. Play that at my funeral, please. Rejoice with me one last time.
I'm glad you touched on the top 4 part, because a lot of people forget that. Everyone says, the day when Collingwood knocked Carlton out of the finals, but that was just as big for us on a personal side of things.
It was.
We missed the 4, and that's essentially our premiership hopes done. I know teams have done it. Brisbane did it last year, but it's very, very hard to win a premiership from outside the 4, as we know.
Yeah,
so that just set up our whole final series. Unfortunately, it ended in Sydney by a point, but that game was just huge on so many different levels.
The last 2 minutes of that match were just sensational. And is there anything better than beating them like that? Well, there isn't.
Well, sorry to interrupt, Paige. It might not be appropriate, it might be too appropriate to play at your funeral if you play along Gerard Whateley's commentary.
Like the Grim Reaper.
Oh my god!
I think I've watched it back that many times. I could be like the Shipmates boys and commentate the whole thing.
All right, last one. We'll go back to Pat. Who is your all-time favourite player? And on top of that, who's an obscure player that you had a soft spot for? Here at the Interwoods podcast, we love our obscure players.
Okay. So I guess growing up playing footy in the 90s, playing at primary school, Vic Kick, which is obviously now Oz Kick, it'd have to be Peter Dacos. Trying to do his check sides or his torps, trying to copy all his goals. I remember watching Dacos hot shots on VHS on loop, just trying to copy so many of his torps. But it was weird because I had Damien Monkhurst's number on my back.
Oh, really?
But obviously I wasn't tall enough to be a ruckman, so it's just trying to do the torps. So, yeah, definitely Dakes. And it's so weird to be able to see Peter Dacos and then see his son, which is probably, after the careers, he's probably going to be the best one of the family. So, yeah, in terms of an obscure player, I had a friend that I went to high school with. He ended up playing for Collingwood. He only played a handful of games.
Okay.
His name's Adam Yakabuchi.
Yes.
I remember him. Yes. I do.
Oh, what a legend.
Yeah.
His name was on an ad. I'm not sure if you probably remember, Pat, that ad. They're singing. Yeah. He ended this.
So he wore number 38, and I think he played under 5 games, right? And I think it was around 05, 06. And his first game, I remember being in the Ponsford stand. I remember I was N29 because I had a very good view of this on the MCC side, he got absolutely poleaxed by Aaron Hamill.
Oh,
Thank you.
I'm surprised
And
he's alive.
my goodness, like he was a big boy. Like we won some flags at school and he was just built like, he was like, it was crazy compared to sort of most of us. And he got up straight away and I was just sort of looking at my old man saying, geez, we obviously took different paths because I would have just been like, just dig a hole for me. But
Hey, do you know what he's up to these days?
He runs quite a successful gym. I think it's called Unified System. So he basically runs a program for up and coming kids that might be playing TAC Cup or Coates League now. He runs quite a cool gym.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Paige, all-time favorite player and an obscure one too.
Oh, I think all-time favourite's probably Nathan Buckley. Definitely growing up in that era of Bucks coming across. I was part of that Bucks brigade that you spoke about earlier.
Were you? And,
so
and you were
I
allowed to have
that.
the number 5 on your top. Your parents let you do that.
Yeah, I did. I don't know if I would
There you go,
even have
Michael.
another option potentially, but geez, I loved Bucks. There's a funny story. I actually I lived down the coast growing up, so coming up and down to Melbourne for games was quite difficult. And when I turned 18, I got my driver's license. I drove up for a family day. I'd freshly been 18, maybe a month, and I'd never met Nathan Buckley before properly, and I wanted to get his autograph on a poster. And then I had this wild decision that I made, and I asked him to give me an autograph on my shoulder. Ooh. And he was like, it's a bit weird. Okay. And so I wandered down to Swan Street and got it tattooed over the top. And that was very awkward about 10 years later when I started working with the guy at Fox Footy and became pretty close with him at work and whatnot. And that was quite an awkward moment when I got stitched up by a few colleagues about the autograph. And he was like, you're that girl that I signed. I remember that. I remember that. That's you. He couldn't believe it. He told that story to so many people when they were like, what's the weirdest thing a fan's asked you to do? And apparently, a young 18-year-old blonde girl asking you to sign her shoulder's a bit probably on the nose. And I showed him the tattoo. And anyway, crazy. So I loved Bucks growing up, but in terms of like a obscure player, I really loved Mel Michael when he was playing for us. Yeah, I still can't believe we let him go. Who else? Rupert Bathiris.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's mixed pick as well, I reckon.
The Roop. I tell you what, I don't know how he only lasted 3 years on our list. He deserves so much longer.
Yeah, he was so good.
Wasn't he? He was fantastic. And it's just really random. I think he might have only been on our list for maybe 2 years, maybe even 1. But I remember, Clinton King?
Dermot. Yes, Dermot remembers Clinton King.
No. Are you talking about David
hair.
King or
no? Clinton King.
Yeah.
I think
he was from Richmond.
He was number 40. I think he might have gone to Richmond afterwards, but he started. I'm pretty sure he started with us. Anyway, he had these big eyebrows and he had this long, like shaggy hair. He looked like he should be down at Bells Beach surfing rather than playing football. And he was this wiry dude. And
dark hair, didn't he? He had dark hair.
Dark hair. I know this is a real blast. He would have been on our list like 1999, I reckon, in that late 90s team. And I met him down at Vic Park one day, and I reckon he kicked the footy with me back and forth for, it probably felt like an hour, and it was probably only 5 minutes. But when you're a kid, like those things really stay with you, I think, especially in an era where, I think if it's 1999, we won the wooden spoon that year. So those little things make all the difference in your fandom growing up and sticking with the club. And I just remember thinking that was really cool. He didn't have to do that. And I thought about that many, many years afterwards. So, Clinton King.
Clinton King. Mick, were you thinking David King? Is that why you said that I would remember?
Yeah, I initially thought David King because you were a fan of his. But, I do really once Pat mentioned the number 40, I vaguely remember him. And, mop of dark hair. Yeah, as you say, wiry type, skinny, wiry. Yeah, that's all I remember of him, though. Just those things. But while I'm talking, Paige, you work, as you said, you work for Seven Sports Department. You have worked for Fox Footy. Could you tell us a bit about it, if you wouldn't mind?
Yeah, well, look, I'm at Channel 7 these days. So my role there is I'm the lead sports creative. And that's a fancy way of saying that I make lots of cool shit to do with footy and just sports across the board. So lots of TV commercials. I've made documentaries. I've done lots of different sort of those cinematic things you see on the Thursday and Friday night football before the two teams play. What else have I done? There's so many. It's quite vast. We do lots of stuff for sponsors. So, McDonald's, Telstra, Toyota, all of those sorts of ads and stuff. So in terms of what that looks like, whether I'm directing a shoot from behind the camera, I'm writing scripts or TV ads or editing and pulling things together. I've also done quite a lot of stuff in sort of stats and analysis as well. So for Friday Night Footy, so I'd used to be, so Hodgie would usually do sort of the captain's corner and the Telstra tracker and that sort of stuff. And that would be sort of me sitting behind the scenes, watching a lot of stats and live vision unfold and drawing things up and articulating them on, and then they'd play them through and Hodgie would speak to them, or you'd be giving through stats or lots of different things. So I've been really fortunate that I've made a nice career out of footy, which is, it can be a little bit difficult at times for women in footy. It's not, I guess, a traditional space for women, but the great thing I love about Seven is that they, they see your ability over gender, and they've been really welcoming of that. And I think it's the first time they've had a female lead sport in the creative side of things. So that says a lot to them and their trust in me to get the job done and have the ideas and work with the teams. And that spans across broadcast, that spans across social media, that spans across marketing and sales and lots of different parts of the business. So it's quite fun. It's quite involved. We do a lot with, the players themselves, the commentators. It's pretty involved. It's quite fun. It doesn't feel like work.
Well, the example you gave with the work you did with Hodge, that sounds fairly pressured. That's a pressure environment, by the sounds.
Yeah. Live TV is pressure. It's it's certainly there isn't a lot of room for error. But I guess when you are, it's like anything. If you're confident in what you do and you know your stuff, then you sort of probably don't feel the pressure as much. I always hated doing Collingwood games because you find yourself a little bit too invested. But truly, it's lots of fun. It's the stuff that I'd be talking about in conversation with Hodgie, or what we'd be talking about, what we're seeing on happen on the field, or what I'm seeing on different camera angles that audiences at home wouldn't be seeing, and stats and patterns and lots of heat maps, and you interpret all of that information to deliver sort of an outcome. Collingwood's had 10 inside 50s in 42 seconds for a return of 7 points. So the ratio there is quite vast. They're peppering, but they're not getting any, return on investment, so to speak. And you can give quick stats like that, and a pro like Hodgie is able to go, cool, I've got those quick little facts. Now I can give something to the audience at home in what we're seeing and observing.
That's impressive. It's really impressive. Yeah.
It's a bit of fun.
Yeah. I'm absolutely fascinated by this kind of stuff, Paige. Do you have any stories that you can share with us, kind of behind the scenes kind of stuff? That's the stuff I'm into.
We want the stuff, Paige. Don't hold back.
Give us the goss. Come on.
Because Kane Corns is at Channel 7 now, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. Actually, what is Kano? I'm actually a Kane Corns fan. I need to know.
Kane's awesome. The thing is, I think he gets a bad rap, personally. But, he's a guy that's more than happy to stick his neck out and have his opinions and share them. And I think what gets lost in what a lot of Kane says is that he actually backs up a lot of what he says with stats and with, something that's, got at least a line, a tangible line. landscapes and what doesn't help him, I suppose, this is where potentially he gets a lot of the backlash from, is that we know in footy that landscapes change really quickly. I mean, you can be flying 1 second, there's a scandal, there's an incident on the ground, there's a string of losses or bad performances or what have you, and that puts clubs, players, boards under duress, and media lurch onto that because, you know, in the environment that we're in, especially if it's a big club, then it sells papers. I mean, look what's happening with Richmond and Lynch at the moment. It's going from bad to worse, right? So for him, because he has so many opinions and he has them in a lot of places and he appears on a lot of different shows and on a lot of different mediums, typically the more that you put yourself out there, you know, you open yourself up to not being right 100% of the time. If we're going to put it in a Collingwood context, Nick Dacos has 35 disposals on average a week. Is he going to hit the target 35 times? Absolutely not. If he only has 10 in the game, is he going to hit the target? Probably going to do it 90% of the time. Yeah. So you're working on really a law of fractions is the simplest way to put it. So, but I like him. He's very polite. He's well-liked. He's very easy to work with. He's an absolute professional. I've never seen a guy rock up to shows or what have you so prepared and ready. And, you know, from experience, not that I'm going to throw anyone under the bus, but there are people in our industry that I've worked with, you know, Foxes and Seven or you know, Herald Sun, wherever I've been. People just don't come prepared. They just rely on a just fleeting knowledge and opinion and sort of only half go in, but he's very prepared.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. Anyway, we should really get into the agenda now. And first, I just want to check, are you there, Serg?
Of course, I'm loving that. Paige and Pat, fantastic. What fantastic guests and very, very interesting.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we'll start with you, Serg, in the agenda because, like I said at the intro, you are our VFL man. You know everything about the VFL. You go every week. You send us those amazing reports via email for both us and Pies Nations podcast. And the news of the day is we have a debutant, Rowan Steele, mature age player, mid-season draft. He's only been at the club, is it 3 weeks? I think it's caught everyone by surprise. Well, most people anyway. Has it caught you by surprise?
Look, this would be an interesting question, and I don't want to. I'll give you my answer, but interesting to see what Paige and Pat have to say. Has it caught me by surprise? I would have thought there was a couple of guys in front of him, but his form. He's been there for 4 weeks. He's played 4 games, and he's been quite proficient in those games. Like last week, he had 19 disposals, kicked a goal. The week before 16, the week before that 20, 24. So he knows where the ball is, and he's a goal kicker when he gets a chance. He's only kicked singles at this time, but he plays out on the wing mainly, and he's a good mark for his size. So am I surprised? Yes. I don't know where they're going to play him, but
that was my next question.
Yeah. Look, he's playing in the wing and maybe halfback. I don't know.
Could you see him playing as maybe a bit of a pressure forward? You know, with Schultz and McCreary and potentially Bobby Hill are going to miss another week. Could he play that role?
Yeah. Yes, I could see that. He does tackle well. He's like in terms of his stats, he knows where the ball is. He knows where the goals are, and his pressure. I don't know what his pressure acts are like, but I've seen him, and he does tackle. And his tackles usually stick. He had. I don't know if you know his background, but he's a Frankston. He's a local Victorian from Frankston who went to Casey, played there for a couple of years, and then was delisted and went to West Perth, and now he's back in Victoria. Where am I going with that? He's 183 centimetres, so he's not, well, in comparison to me, he's huge, but he's not a big, tough midfielder. But yeah, I think he'll do all right. He's probably not as fast as Hayes, but his tackles would stick and he knows his way around the football ground. So Am I surprised? Yes, to some extent. Will he do a good job? Let's wait and see. But he's certainly attained himself well in the VFL. I don't know what Pat and Paige think about that, but
Well, Pat, have you got an opinion, Pat? Have you seen him? Do you get around the VFL games or?
Just from the sort of the clips that the club puts out. But I remember when he got drafted, and he seemed to have, in comparison to some of the VFL guys there, he's obviously a mature body as well as like a mature age. I think he's what, 23?
23, yep.
Yeah. I guess it then comes down to, when I heard tonight, I thought, well, where does Tom Mitchell fit? Maybe it's not like for like. He had 28 on the weekend, so he's sort of knocking the door down. But then with Steele going out, playing sort of half forward wing, does that sort of a like for like? Only the club will know. Hopefully he doesn't play as the sub.
I was about to say that too. That's the worst thing in football. Making your debut and then sitting on the bench for 3.5 quarters, like getting your whole family over. It's awful.
Look, to answer Pat's question, if they actually, if he's and I think I saw this Steele for Steele, or was that, then he would be, he would be much better placed than Tom. Tom's in there. He gets the ball out of the middle. He's had some really good games in the VFL, but I would have thought someone of his ilk. And look, to be fair to him, he's also been tagged a lot, even in the VFL. He gets his 28s and 30s, and he does a lot of the grunt work. He was crucial in the win last week. We wouldn't have won without him, as well as a couple of the VFL guys. But yeah, it's an interesting point you make there.
Wouldn't someone like a Harry Dimmotan, he would be feeling a little bit ripped off, surely. Like he's just been doing his thing for a couple of years now in the VFL, and someone comes in for 3-4 weeks and he's already got the call up. Like, oh yeah. Anyway,
there's no pecking order. I just don't. Yeah, look, yeah, that's a good point. What does Paige? What do you think?
A recruiter at the Pies told me, well, maybe 3 years ago now, that there's a Collingwood blueprint for how they draft. One, it's their running capability. Two, it's their versatility in terms of how many different positions can they flick you around on the ground and play to an above average to elite level in terms of what their outputs are in-house. And the third one is your kicking. And those are the first three, I guess, merits they look at before you're considered draftable by Collingwood. I know from someone that was sort of telling me down at the club that Rowan Steele's GPS numbers are just off the Richter. This guy has got a massive tank. He just runs and runs and runs. His endurance is good. He's got a couple of good bursts of first couple of steps before he gets into a bit of a rhythm. And he can play wing, he can go on ball, he can play high half forward. And I think that's the sort of system that Fly really preaches, is that versatility. How many times in a game do you see a guy like, I don't know, a Will Hoskin-Elliott get flicked around, he's off a half-back flank, and then he's half forward, he's on a wing, and then he's got a rotation on the ball. The same with guys like Lipinski and all of that. They're hard runners. And I guess the game in which it's played at the moment, especially our style, demands that. Out in a wing as well, an MCG wing against Carlton. I mean, the thing that I really like about this guy, and I don't know how many people know it or not, but he never played in the TAC Cup or the Coates League or NAB League, whatever it is called now. He actually was never picked. He's been perennially overlooked in all these high performance academies and pathway programs, and has literally had to go the long way around and done all the hard work. So I just think that says a lot about his footballing character. He's just persistence and work rate and determination. And, you know, those guys are kind of synonymous with the black and white. We love those workhorses that, and, you know, no frills, but it just get the job done and honour the jumper. So I like it. Big body, you know, it's not the first time we've blooded a mid-year draftee within a couple of weeks of being at the club. Obviously, they've picked him because they wanted to play him, and I don't mind it. And especially if he's going to give us something as well at ground level too, I think that's probably something we struggled with a little bit against West Coast. Was we were so top heavy in the forward half that when the ball hit the deck, it was almost walked out of our back line. I haven't seen it come out of our back line so easily this year until we had 4 big talls in our forward line. So, hopefully he alleviates that. But I mean, good luck to him. What a great story.
I got a quick question, Dermot, a follow-up question. A question without notice to any of the three of you. Who would you liken him to in style?
Oh, probably a Patrick Lipinski from me.
Right.
That may sit well depending on which side of the Lipinski argument you sit on.
I don't think Serg would be too happy.
I think he's a better mark though, a much better mark. From what I can see, he's a terrific overhead grab.
I'd argue Paige is one grade up than Lipinski at this stage of his career. He actually reminds me, I think you said it, he's like a Steele, side bottom.
Yeah.
Probably not as classy at this point. I could be wrong. I haven't seen him kick on both sides of his body. But you raised some fantastic points there, which I'd forgotten about. That yes, we do. That is the blueprint. And when you look at and there's your answer, guys. Why Di Martina hasn't gone ahead of him is this guy's a much better kick, and he's probably more versatile. I hate to say, but yes.
And I remember Fly this afternoon. I heard him say, Paige, when he was saying he's got a big tank, he said. I think he was joking around, but he said, yeah, your GPS was, you travelled like 18 kilometres last week in your game. And he mucked around. He goes, oh, that was to half time. But I think, that tank, similar to, I think Lipinski's got a tank, but.
Yeah, massive one.
Sorry, Sidey just keeps running as well, right? So just.
Yeah, and look, it makes sense. It's almost a like for like, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, even though Steele's probably played more minutes on the ball this year and had more impact on the midfield rotations, he still collapses out to a wing and holds that shape too. But I think the thing about Rowan Steele is that defensively, his defensive running is something we're probably going to look to, a bit like Harry Perryman in that regard.
Yeah.
Solid contributor in the midfield, but probably what sticks out as well for coaches is that he's just a terrific, hard worker going into defence. And his ability to sort of hold space and shape, especially on the defensive wingman side as opposed to the attacking side, is probably going to, be really, really handy for us. Especially that's something that Steele does quite well.
So I'm hearing, Paige, that he's more like Steele side bottom than Lipinski. And thank God for that.
Oh, look, you know what? If he can be half the player Steele has been for us, I think we're in for a treat, right? A handy mid-season pickup. And look, they took him at pick 8, and I think there are a few players that were probably mooted to be well and truly ahead of him that we were looking at.
That's true.
When we took him, I think everyone went, who?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
We'd gone crazy. Shane O'Bree's back at the club and he's done one on us already. But, I mean, Shane O'Bree spotted a lot of very good talent that's now at the Cattery.
Yep.
And plucked them from obscurity. Max Holmes, Dempsey. Yeah, these guys are, doing very, very well down there.
Mm-hmm. I'm just sorry, Paige. I've got the TV on the background and they're showing a replay of Maynard fixing up DeGoey. Because DeGoey's
what a debacle.
If you didn't know, DeGoey's got concussion. Have we now got license to hate Maynard irrationally, like the Melbourne supporters do?
Yeah, I'm used to him taking everyone else out, not our own bloody players, especially one that we're craving to get back into this side. But what's another week or two without Geordie? Honestly, yeah. I think we've almost.
So does he have to go through the protocols as well?
He does.
Yeah, he will.
He does.
Why would you even announce that? Seriously,
Yeah.
I think it was picked up. That's a problem when you've got so many people down at training filming everything always and putting it on social media. There's no such thing as a closed training session at Collingwood.
Yeah, does it not amaze everyone that he couldn't have hit someone who's like one of the VFL players? It's got to be one of our star quality players.
It's got to be the prized bull.
I know.
Yeah, well, unbelievable.
Sorry to interrupt. Wasn't it Ned Long who fixed him up earlier in the year with his bone bruising?
It was, yes.
It was.
Yeah, it was. Yep.
Yeah, there you go.
All
So
right.
no
So
one's gonna touch
during
Neds.
our, sorry, who was that?
No, I was just gonna say no one's gonna go through Ned. So
Exactly.
No,
Oh, yeah,
that's a brick
exactly.
wall.
All right, so during our last panel show in June, we were just coming off that Hawks win. I still think our best win of the year. We were bloody up and about. The lid was off and everything was great. Since that episode, we haven't actually lost. And if anything, you think we'd probably be in a bit happier. What are we? 10 points clear, top of the ladder. But we've had three pretty underwhelming performances against the D's and the Saints, and then more recently the Eagles, with a bye chucked in the middle of that. Are you guys a little bit concerned about our recent form, or was it just sort of us going through emotions, middle of the year, Melbourne winter, we're so far above the rest of the competition, couple of Marvel games against, crap opposition. It could be hard to get yourselves up for, but is that the case, or are there some slight concerns? Like, I think it's well publicized, the clearance issues, contested possessions. It's just, I don't know. We'll start with Serge.
Not concerned at all. You don't win premierships at this time of the year, as I've been told a million times. But we're just there to qualify, and then and everyone knows that once you get into the finals, it's a new season, right? That's my view. No, I'm not concerned. Yes, would I like to have enjoyed my game at Marvel at West Coast with that sort of performance where we were just handball happy? Yes, and it wouldn't have affected my heart as much as it did. But you just got to take the good with the bad. And look, they're experimenting, and it'd be interesting to see what the other panel members think about it, because we're 10 points clear. I don't want to jeopardise with where we're at, so I want to win as many more games as we can. But the fact is, as long as we get in the finals, that's when it really counts.
I think I heard Mick trying to cut in. Do you have something to say?
Well, being a Collingwood supporter of a certain age, I'm negative by nature because I've just been hurt too many times. While watching the game, I was having a lot of negative thoughts, but in the clear light of day, I realised what Serge said. We're 10 points clear. There's an element of experimentation going on. I think I was watching one of the panel shows last night, and they were saying we're trying to play a bit quicker. I don't think that quite worked. We weren't giving it to players in great positions, and they adjusted in the second half. But also things like just the injuries have crept up on me. Actually, how many injuries we have at the moment? Like we've got, likes of Frampton and Maynard, Mitchell, DeGoey, of course, Schultz, McCreary, Bobby Hill wasn't there. So it really we were quite depleted. And they might be going through the training loads, the famous training loads, or I think that's normally a little bit later in the year. So in the clear light of day, no, I wasn't as negative as I was when I was actually watching it. So I'm on the same page as Serge.
Just so you know, Mick, I said that, but I wasn't feeling it at the game.
Yeah, I know.
I had to be carried out.
Optics, isn't it? It's all to do with the optics. You look at the game, sure, 1 point against the D's, but, there's 5-goal win against the Saints, 5-goal win against the Eagles. You're playing poorly. That's still a decent scoreline to be having. But what I think stands out the most and what is probably the most dangerous, thing to sort of counter for 17 opposition teams is that we're still achieving these quite good results, these 5-goal wins. We're playing, poorly or flat, however you want to frame it. But our depth, it's been that next man up mentality. Coming into the start of the year, maybe we had question marks around what our depth looks like, our exposed form as well. On paper, the best 22 looks fantastic, but what's beneath that? There's question marks over kids. There's question marks over blokes that are over the age of 30. We've managed guys. We've blooded. We'll have our third debutant this weekend. We've found one in Ned Long. And then we've had natural progression, especially out of guys like a Billy Frampton, that have really taken the opportunity and run with it. Pity that he's also found himself on the injury list too. But something that Hodgie once told me, he said, good teams can have a couple of games where their form's pretty patchy, they get away with a few, and then they fall off a cliff. They drop a game and they get belted. But great teams, they weather a period where they're not playing great footy, they're still banking wins, and then all of a sudden they turn and they just go up to another level. And so you almost count that basically as internally, yes, it looks, you've got the outcome, the win, but internally, did we play great? No, we would probably be holding ourselves to a standard of that feels like a loss, although we got the 4 points. So to still be playing, I guess, poorly and be coming out with margins that would be enviable for teams, well and truly below us is, I think, a great outcome. And, once we start getting guys back in and that synergy, I mean, really this time of year, you can drop a few because complacency can creep in. And even if we did, it's not the end of the world. But, what you're really looking to is that last 5 to 6 weeks of the year where we're starting to really, kick up a notch and really get in tune and make a run and be ready for September.
Yeah, I totally agree with that too, Paige. And I looked at a stat where we were quite similar, almost percentage-wise to 23. Like after round 16, we're on 52 points.
Eerie, isn't it?
It was really strange. And I think those last 3 weeks against Melbourne, St Kilda and West Coast is probably the first time, and we've been able to win, but we've also been able to find a way to protect Nick, how to protect Nick out of the stoppages, find some space for him on the outside, inside. And obviously with Ned Long playing a really good, a good role there. I think if anything, to be able to win by 5 goals on average, I guess other than the Melbourne game, but to be able to learn on how to protect Nick, because obviously he's our best ball user. What a problem to have, right? Like win by 5 goals and teach everyone a lesson. So it's pretty good.
I mean, other teams play poorly and they get belted by 10 goals. So it's not a bad position to be in, to be playing, some flat footy. But the other thing probably not talking about too is when you look at a West Coast, teams that are sort of that bottom 2, 3, 4 that have got either, massive drop off in experience, or they've got, overtly amount of players that are really inexperienced, they often become the most dangerous teams because they're so you never know what you're going to get from them. Their form is so up and down. They are unpredictable, absolutely, Serg. So that's the other thing too. That's their grand final, West Coast. I mean, they probably came out and went, "Oh shit!" Well, everyone's talking about how much we're going to get belted by tonight, and football is as such that we love the backs against the wall mentality, and we love being told that we haven't got a chance, and that gets teams up and about. And luckily we have enough polish in the end to finish it off in that last quarter. But yeah, for 3 quarters it wasn't looking great, was it?
No, it wasn't. It definitely wasn't. Pat, let me throw a question at you. You're talking about Nick. Do you reckon there's been a lot of chatter, and I think it was the Pies Nation podcast boys talked about it, and so did the Rant. Are we starting to maybe use him a little bit too much? Are we giving the ball to Nick when he isn't in the greatest position? And there was one that popped out to me against the Eagles where it might have been Lockie Sullivan. He could have just kicked it inside 50. There were plenty of options. We've got the 4 key forwards. If you got the 4 key forwards, you just got to get it in there quick. But instead, he kind of handballed it almost backwards to Nick. He had a man right on him, and is it becoming a look? I don't think it's becoming an issue. We'll fix it. But have you got a similar thought to what all these other Collingwood supporters have been talking about?
It's a funny one because I did think the same, Dome, on Saturday night for that passage of play. And I said to a few of the boys, I said, Sully could have just kept going in, but whether or not Nick was calling so loud and they just think, hey, I've got to pass it to him. And he also, I think on the wing, he tried to do a little bit too much. And I think he already spent the handball and he threw it in the air and it got turned over.
Yeah.
Look, I think Nick's going to be Nick, and I heard even Ned Long say he's got some creative license to sort of be that player for us. And that's our job or his job to protect him to be able to do that. And like we've seen, right? Like if he's taken, then Josh stands up. Obviously, Bo was in the middle helping him out. I think that we're just going to, it's sort of organic, right? It's just going to sort of evolve and work it out. But there were some good passages of play, right? When Nick got that handball and kicked it from 50. So
yeah.
I think he finished with 30 odd. So he's doing something right.
Well, I just mentioned the 4 key forwards, and I think we can all agree that it didn't work, and it won't be happening again. Especially Charlie West is now injured; he's out for I don't know how long, so it definitely won't be happening again. But the forward mix is very interesting, and I've talked about the round a couple of times. They're very big on how they don't think the 3 talls are working. Michael seems to agree with that. I think it's working. Have we lost a game with the 3 of them playing them? Probably opening round against the Giants, but other than that,
can I interject, Dermot, for a second? Because I spoke about my wonderful idea at the start of the show that I wanted to pose.
Is this it? Is it?
Yeah. Can I go ahead?
Go on, go for it.
I've never been a believer. In all our debates over the years, Dermot, you say to me, "Oh, yeah, you can't move this player backline because he's been trained with the forwards all year, and vice versa." I've never believed.
I've never said that, but yeah, go on.
Well, you have many of them. McStay, we've got a fairly big body of evidence now, with and without McStay. So you accused me of never doing any work. I've delved into the stats today.
Yeah.
10 games with McStay in the forward line. Pies are averaging 91.6. Without McStay, 5 games, pretty much the same, 95.4. So pretty much a muchness. Jamie Elliott, with him in the side, with McStay in the side, is averaging 2.9 shots a goal. That jumps up to 4.8 without McStay.
That's fascinating, because I was going to ask the panel if the forward line mix is better for Elliott with only 2 tours. So that's interesting, yeah.
I will continue on. So obviously, there's with McStay in the forward line, there's more of a spread of goal kickers, which some people will say is a good thing. But can we sacrifice that and shore up an area which I think is vulnerable? Frampton's out at the moment, but even when he does come back, he's a bit. I don't have full trust in him, and I know there's a second ruck issue as well. But what does the panel think about McStay playing back?
Well,
sometimes did a Brisbane.
Before we chuck it to the panel, I just want to ask: are you saying that McStay stays down there even when Frampton's back? As in, you wouldn't pick Frampton?
I would. Oh, look, I'm not even convinced of my own idea. Okay, I've got to be. Frampton still worries me. He still worries. I just think a steady hand like McStay in the back line. So you got McStay as the pillar at full back, and then you got Darcy Moore and Howe as a third tall. It fills me with a bit more confidence than a Frampton back there.
He's been so good this year, and we haven't seen McStay play that role for.
I'm not convinced, but we'll go to Paige first. What do you think, Paige?
Look, I think before we had this string of injuries to our smalls, so Shooter, Bo, and obviously we've sort of got Hill that's sort of we're not sure what's sort of going on there. I think it's been working. I think Membry has played that sort of third tall. He's still commanding a really quality defender, which means that it becomes that much easier, and that's why we've seen so many more goals scored from Billy this year. Is his ability to get off the chain, because he's basically taking the 4th best defender in our forward line. I think that has freed him up. I think when we've had our, I guess, first choice 22, that's obviously our better ball users, our system, and our structure. Going forward, we've been an aerial threat all year, and it's something I don't think we can say we've had for a long bloody time. Is, you look at the 2023 flag side, it's just Brodie Mychek. In 2018, it's just Brodie Mychek, Cox to a degree, but 2023 we won a flag with Brodie Mychek. You had to be a battering ram all year, and we used a fleet of smalls. But I think we've also found this balance now between our smalls, a medium in Membry who comes in. He's only 192, who comes in and helps those big men get off the chain a little bit more. I don't know if I'd be sacrificing McStay. I really like him in the side. He's got great hands up forward, and he's a really reliable kick, I think, on goal. I'll throw one at you. Why not Myercheck?
Well, I've campaigned for that in the past, as Dermot will tell you, probably every year or so, because he came to Collingwood as a fullback.
Myercheck might be one of the best key defenders of the VFL scene in a long, long, long time before he got drafted to Collingwood. And although that, was back in, he came to Collingwood in 2018, it's still not that long ago. And we've seen in games when we sort of get into red time when he does go behind the ball at times and he appears. I'm not against Checkers being that guy. I think McStay gives us a lot of versatility in his agility, in his leaping and whatnot. Obviously, Checkers is a great contested mark and such a sure thing on goal.
Are you talking about short term with Myercheck going down there as a Frampton replacement, or are you talking long term as well?
Charlie Dean's absolutely not up to it. He's not. He's not. If we're going to not mince words, I think he's a good, solid, depth option. But for anyone that watches American football, when you've got a depth chart of key defenders, he's at the bloody bottom for us.
Yeah.
And now we're having to call upon him, and that's going to sort of really stretch us a little bit. My confidence isn't in. I've got more confidence in Billy Two Touch than I do have in Chaz Dean. But look, it's just more onus on the midfield, isn't it? The opposition's only getting the ball down in their 50 if our midfield is, has lapses in concentration or don't hit targets or skill errors or whatnot. So the best way we can help that back line is our midfielders is getting to work and being really switched on. So, I mean, who have we got coming up in terms of that's going to hurt us though?
As in key forwards?
Yeah, that's the other thing we sort of look at.
Gold Coast, King and Jed Walter.
Yeah, so that's probably the big one. Lynch isn't going to be there for Richmond. Adelaide's probably the one where they've got 3.
Yeah, will Billy be right by then, do you reckon? How far away is that?
I think he's 3 to 4, I saw.
3 to 4.
He's probably, They might be... Look, we've been pretty cautious this year with injuries. The depth's been great, so... But
I just like how Billy Frampton has been able to free up Darcy Moore.
Yeah, great.
I personally don't like Darcy Moore playing one-on-one. I think he just he's a little bit vulnerable. He's just so good as a running defender.
Yeah, he panics when he's one-on-one.
A little bit, but you've got to play to your strengths, right? Like Billy Frampton's just a wall. He'll punch. He'll stick to his man.
He's dour, isn't he?
Yeah.
Dour.
And he's a premiership full forward, but he's... That's what I call
with 2 touches.
Doesn't matter. He could have had 2 goals.
I know.
Bounce off his chest, yeah.
I think I wouldn't change that too much, but I agree with you. I saw Charlie Dean and I was just like, oh, you sort of look out of your depth, but at the same time, hasn't played for so long, comes in. Like, yes,
you know what? We probably felt the same when we saw Reef go down. We thought, oh shit, Billy Frampton's back in the side again. And to his credit, it's just continuity, isn't it? And consistency. And I can only hope that Chaz finds his feet because he's going to have a good month of having to play some decent roles and get a good look at it. But it's something to address, I think, at the draft, if not the trade period.
What do you think about Michael's point, Serg?
Look, there's 2 issues there, or 2 points. The first one is, shoring up the defence while Frampton's out, and obviously he's put up McStay. I was thinking Myercheck, like Paige, as an option there. I don't know why we've never done that, particularly now that we have McStay, Membray as well. And potentially a West if you wanted to go, keep the 3 tools. But the issue is, and I heard this stat again that Michael just mentioned. The issue is, do we need Billy Elliott kicking 5 goals every week? Because his capacity to kick those big scores is definitely down when you have the 3 big guys there. Now, is that because there's a better spread of goal kickers, which I'm a fan of? Do I want to see Billy Elliott kick 10 goals every week or 5 goals every week? Yes, I do. But I think it gets back to the Collingwood way of playing is they want to spread it. So as long as he gets his 2 goals and he does his job, then that's probably a good way to go. Interesting. I like hearing the comments around Dean. He plays exactly the same way in the AFL that he does in the VFL. Can I just put that to the panel? When he can intercept, and when he intercepts, he looks really good, even in the VFL. But when when a player marks him or he's in a contest with the player, he comes off second best. Mm-hmm. So I'm not surprised that on the weekend he didn't look. I want him to succeed because I think I do like him, but as Paige pointed out, he's not at this point in time, and maybe it is continuity, but his form in the VFL is reflective of how he plays in the seniors. Like when he's on his own, intercepting, looks good. The team defence looks $1 million in the back line there with Glover and a couple of the other guys like Jacob Ryan. But when he's got to be physical and one-on-one, he comes off second best.
Would you say that Dean makes way for Bruz this week?
Well, good question. It depends on what they're going to do. So I would have thought so.
Yeah.
I'm hearing that there's other people are saying that he should be given another chance. Yeah, like Paige's point around consistency, right? Is that going to make him play better? It could. I don't know. Would you risk it? Maybe you do, because that way you're going to know one way or the other whether the guy is up to it. Would I do it? I hate Carlton. I wouldn't want to give him any chance in the any opportunity. But Curnow's not playing that well, and Mackay's still out, isn't he?
Yeah, he won't play.
Yeah. So to Paige's point, and I think Pat, you made the same point. That who do we really need tools in the back line? For the next Gold Coast, outside of Gold Coast, probably not. But I would think Maynard would come in for Dean, but who knows?
Well, let me throw this at you, Serg. So we'll go back to the forward line for a second and we'll look more long term. So you got McStay, you got Myercheck, you got Membry, you got Elliott. What about if you added Jordan De Goey? Is that when it's getting a little bit too much up there? Would you consider dropping maybe a Tim Membry? It sounds harsh. I personally wouldn't, but there's a lot of people out there that are talking about it. What would you do?
No, I would. And I know this is going to sound dull. Well, happy for the panel to bag me on this, but I'm not confident from what has happened of late, and also just an off-the-cuff remark that Hill made when McRae had a meeting and they were celebrating and congratulating Myercheck for his 150th. I would replace De Goey with Hill until Hill showed some form, or
really.
Without, he's obviously going through some personal issues. It looks as if he's been going through these personal issues. And look, I don't know, right? So but the way his form's been, and just off the cuff remarks that he mentioned at that particular gathering, I'm thinking this has been going on for a while. I don't know what it is, but you look at it, he's been off his game.
He has,
yeah. And it could be as simple as these personal issues, which, but Yeah, if you ask me the question, at this point of time, that's what I'd be doing.
Well, assuming that it's just a form slump and it hasn't got something to do with those personal issues, would you continue to maybe play Bobby but in a different position? How would you think he would go maybe on a wing? Like Michael and I have always talked about him further up the ground because obviously small forward is in a way the hardest position on the ground. Like if you're not in the game, you're not in the game. If your tools aren't bringing it to the ground, you're not much of a show. So his kicking inside 50, I think, is elite. Would you like to see him maybe trialed a little bit further up the ground?
Yeah, look, if it's going to give him some confidence, I'm open to, I wouldn't mind. He's got the speed. Has he got the stamina to be running all day? Yeah, probably has, because I've seen him go up and down the ground a lot to cover in defence. It's a hard look. There's no doubt about it. All those forwards, by the sheer fact that the ball's coming at you and then you've got to get it and then turn around to kick a goal or to handball at someone in a better position. It's easier as a backman, I hate to say. So it's a lot more difficult. Look, I'm not really calling for his head, but if you've asked me the question, at this point, that's what I'd be doing. Or if, say, there's another opportunity in the wing, try him out there.
I remember his first game against the Cats in 2023. I was at that game, and I remember this guy, he was sitting in front of me. At the end of the game, Hill played a blinder, and he wasn't your traditional small forward in that first game. He was almost playing as a wingman. And he turned around to me and he said, I think we've found our next wingman for the next 10 years. And I'm like, yeah. Since that game, I don't think I've really seen him that high up the ground. He was outstanding in that match against Geelong. So, yeah, I don't know. Has anyone else got an opinion on Bobby Hill? Pat, Paige, Mick?
I think Bobby Hill's in our best team, right? Like if we're playing a grand final tomorrow, Bobby Hill's there and so is Geordie. And we just make room for them.
But you got to drop one, Pat. Come on.
Yeah, go on, Paddy. Make a call.
I'm dropping from the team from last week. I'm dropping Sullivan and Markov.
Yeah.
And Ed Allen too to be in that conversation.
Well, and Ed Allen would definitely be that unlucky one.
So would you be happy to have those three tools, Elliott and De Goey, in the same forward line, or would you have De Goey maybe playing more of a traditional mid role?
I think high half forward for Geordie and then sort of coming through the middle as well. Like similar to 2010 and 23 where we had those dual midfields coming through. I think that's so important. And I think a lot of people are saying, what do you do with Will Hoskin-Elliott? I just think that he never gets dropped. At worst, he's our sub.
Is that your opinion or do you I
love him.
You love him? Oh, Mick.
Yeah, sorry, I have to interject here. Can we mute Pat's mic for the rest of
You know what, Pat, I'll back you up here. I think he's our Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, he is.
I think he's a genuine, like, we've got a problem. Will Hoskin-Elliott is weirdly the solution because he's got a great tank. He's got some speed. He's a fantastic overhead mark. Defensively, he is his work off the. I'm pretty lucky because I get to see so much that happens off the ball in what I do in my job. But that guy's work rate in terms of I've seen that guy run 80 to 100 meters just to hold space to shut down an option for the opposition to move that ball into that otherwise they would have. And he does that several times a game that supporters would not notice because we're focused on where the ball is and we're watching the transition. Yeah. But
I'm sorry, can you just hold there for a minute? So Michael, you're gonna have to mute Pat, myself, and Paige. Right?
The show's over.
I agree.
I was just looking at Michael.
Paige
the whole
has
time.
put it beautifully, right? Yeah.
What I'm going to do, Serge, I'll tell you right now, is I'm going to start a rival podcast just.
What are you going to call it? The Will Hoskin-Elliott podcast?
Oh, listen.
I like that. Yeah, I'll join you.
Out of the Woods podcast.
Out of the Woods podcast.
Yeah. Oh, look. I'm not saying he doesn't bring certain qualities. All I've ever said over the years, going back 5 years, is that we could do better. I believe we can do better. There's always been somebody in the list. I kind of rate him somewhere like 22nd to 27th on our list. And I don't think I'm a million miles away from what the coaching staff believe. I think they probably have him somewhere between like 20th and 23rd, 23. I just think, he brings us those things, Paige, as you said, but I just think we can do better.
We could, but who's better though? That's the problem.
Yeah, who would you put in?
If everyone's fit, was somebody talking about De Goey? Somebody said the other day, obviously De Goey's he's not going to be 100% when he comes back if he does come back. Why couldn't we use him as a sub?
Yeah, but Paige's point and Pat's point and my point is this guy can run up and he's almost like the only guy that I would say is better in terms of working as hard is Steele Sidebottom. So if you're going to replace Will Hoskin-Elliott, you got to come up with someone that's going to be able to cover the ground the number of times that he covers the ground. De Goey is not going to cover that ground for you.
Could you not say the same about Lipinski?
I could say the same about Lipinski, but I'm not going to say it.
I hate to agree with Michael, but I do in this case. I think we can do better. I personally would rather someone like an Ed Allen.
Yeah, exactly. Well, sorry to interject, Dermot. Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. And I've said this for the last couple of months. I reckon what we get out of Ed Allen as opposed to Hoskin-Elliott are similar. We have no problem with experience in the side. We're not screaming out for experience. We're the oldest list ever. So we don't need from that point of view. So if you're going to invest, if you've got two guys 50-50, why wouldn't you invest time into the future of the club? So my answer would be I would have Ed Allen ahead of him. So, yeah.
And if you look at a lot of best 23 teams, people are throwing them around, a lot of people have guys like Lipinski as the sub. I've even seen a couple with Perryman as the sub, which I think is ridiculous. I think he's an absolute best 18 lock. But my point being that if those guys are a 23rd man or around the mark, I just don't see once everyone's fit. Once you got Schultz and Hill and McCreary and De Goey and Maynard and all these guys back, like that's 5 players we have to drop from that team against West Coast. Do you guys think that he's not in our bottom 5 against the Eagles? I guess you don't, but I just don't see who else we drop. Maybe, Sullivan. Yeah, that's just my opinion. And where's Tom Mitchell fit into all this as well?
Tom Mitchell, I had in our best 23 at the start of the year if he was fit. And I don't know about you guys, but in the start of the year when Ned Long was named in our team, I went, What?
Yeah.
Why? And why is he a sub? That's not really. Well, he's just surprised everyone. So,
can they play in the same team, Paige?
Oh, no, I don't think they can. I think we trialed that with Adams and Mitchell back in 2023, and it just capitulated. And I feel bad for the guy, but thankfully one of them got injured, and it actually didn't hamper us because Adams on a half-forward flank was never going to fly. And it was never really helpful or conducive to what we were trying to achieve. So I just think when you take a good team that already existed and then you add 3 genuine good players, you've got Houston that's come into the side, you've got Perryman that's come into the side. Tim Membry is not going anywhere because he's such a good foil. And he still bobs up and kicks, 1 at least, 2 usually a week.
Yeah.
Sorry to interject, Paige, but wouldn't you see the Mitchell-Long combo as a upgrade on the Long-Sullivan combo?
Sullivan wouldn't be. If we're talking, do you know what? This was the best 22 I put at the start of our year, right? I'll fire it off really quickly.
Yep.
Howe, Moore, Quaynor, Houston, Frampton, Maynard, Sidebottom, Dacos, McCreary, Myercheck, De Goey, Elliott, McStay, Hill, Cameron, Crisp, Pendlebury. On the bench, I had Perryman, Schultz, Tom Mitchell, Pat Lipinski, and Will Hoskin-Elliott was the sub.
That's pretty close.
So with that list, sorry, Paige, who of the guys that are there currently...
Just drudge that up from January, by the way.
Yeah, no, that's good. But who's missing that is actually, say,
So Ned Long's
obviously,
come into that team, and so
yeah,
has Tim Membry.
Edwards and Membry? Or,
Yep. I mean, that's
sorry, Membry wasn't in your original.
if you're talking at the start. So Membry wasn't in the original, neither was Ned Long.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you're talking front half of the year when we didn't have any injuries and we were, really cherry ripe, then Ed Allen's not getting into that side.
Yep.
Lockie
No, that's why I'm
Salater's not
asking,
getting into
because,
that
yeah, that
side.
makes sense. Yep.
I
So
think when you've got
Ed Allen wasn't in there.
No.
Neither was, you didn't have Long either, did you?
no Long, no Membry, no Ed Allen.
So who are Membry and Long coming in for? Mitchell and from that team?
Mitchell is out. And yeah, that's the $1 million question, isn't it?
Is it Hoskin Elliott?
I didn't have, I thought Frampton was going to start. Reef would take his spot eventually.
Yeah, it's happened the other way around, yeah.
But it's gone the other way around because of injury. Look, there's always someone that misses, isn't there? Donny Noble in 2023, Taylor Adams as well through injury. There's a hard luck story, and there's always a bloke that misses through injury.
Yeah.
And that will be the case this year. You can't not play Jordan De Goey, and even if it has to be at the sacrifice of Will Hoskin Elliott, then so bloody be it. Because you want your best players on the park, and especially guys that are proven performers on the big stage. But someone's going to miss, and we don't know what's going to happen in the second half of, well, not the second half, we're already into it, but in the last sort of 8 weeks, does someone have a setback and an injury? Does Bobby Hill not become available for a period of time?
He's back at the club, isn't he, Bobby? I think I heard that today.
Yes.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just hypothesizing.
Yeah.
Don't know what's going to happen. Is there a positional shift? Is someone suspended? God forbid they are. Who knows?
Someone knocks out one of our players at training and gets concussed. Like, that's never going to happen, but
Well, we've talked about the back line, we've talked about the forward line. I guess we may as well talk about the midfield. And one player that I find fascinating is a guy that's probably not going to be there this week, and that's Steele Sidebottom. So I don't have any stats to back this up, but I've noticed probably in the last month or so, him move from pure inside mid, which we all know he was just absolutely dominating in. He's now playing a little bit more on the outside again. Not that he's been bad or anything, but I just don't feel like he's had the same impact that he had over the first, say, 10 weeks of the year. Are we sort of just like keeping a few things up our sleeve for September? Have we now seen that and we're like, yeah, we know that works. Let's put that aside. Let's try a few more guys in there, and we'll go back to Steele as an inside mid come September. Like,
I think that's right, Dermot. Yeah. I think they're just doing a bit of experimenting at the moment. So I'll put it over to the rest of the panel.
Well, I'll just interrupt. We've got Nick, Pendles, and Longy that are going to be the main three in there, like everyone else. So is it a Mitchell, a Sidebottom as that fourth guy come September? Are we going to see a little bit more of Bo McCreary or a Jordan De Goey for something a little bit different? Or is it a Tom Mitchell, who we've just obviously spoken about? So yeah, we'll start with you, Pat.
I think Bo, Derm. I think Bo, the way he was in that first half before he had that that hamstring awareness, he was just getting it out there. And I think, geez, we've got a good problem to have with all the potential midfielders we can have running through there. But yeah, Bo just brings that bit of a spark, and that it's just weird to not think that Tom Mitchell has a spot in there. He's a Brownlow medalist. He's such a great player, but I just don't think he's like, unfortunately, it would have to mean someone goes down for him to make it. It's a tough one.
What about you, Paige? What's your opinion on the midfield mix?
Oh, look, it's eerily similar to, I guess, not personnel, but in terms of structure to 2010. We streamed, I think Paddy said it before, we streamed 2 midfields, and that came off Mick Moldhouse's genius plan of, in hockey, it's 5 on, 5 off, and everyone sort of switches on and off, and in this case, I mean, you see a starting midfield of, Long, Nick Dacos and Pendlebury, but it can just as easily be Sidebottom, Crisp, McCreary.
I left Crisp out, yeah.
Like we've got so many guys that can actually roll through there. Like Billy Elliott's come up and played at centre bounce.
Even
You
Dan
know,
Houston.
it's just, Houston can do it too. We've seen at times that, Maynard's been at stoppage. So there's options, and I think we've got a plethora of them. In terms of the right mix, I think it's, it seems to be that horses for courses and where's the game, and some players are naturally better defensive midfield, some are better offensive midfield, and getting that right blend is so vital, especially depending on where the game is and where the balance is. Have we got momentum? Have we lost momentum? Are we weathering a storm? Are we trying to neutralise and force stoppage and wind a clock down? What are we doing? And I think where we're at in the game is going to dictate what that looks like and how we're rotating. So Bo looks like a wild card, though.
For sure.
I think he's someone that has been trending in that direction of becoming this real burst player, and he's got some wonderful traits. Like, we know he's got, that top end speed is electric, but he's just a huge unit. His tackling's ferocious. He's a wonderful kick at full tilt, and that's such a difficult thing to do, is to be running at speed and technically have a beautiful ball drop and penetration for it to hit a target, not just to bomb it long for territory, which is what a lot of players can get sucked into doing, is they're not actually doing anything with it. It's a territory gain. Yeah. He hits targets, or he's putting it to space that's to the advantage of a forward that creates an opportunity, or at least force another stoppage to reset inside 50s. So he looks like a wild card of the bunch to me, as we near the back end of the season, and hopefully he gets right, and we can bring him back in. But he's just he's versatile. He's so good up forward, and he's great on the wing. He can go on the ball. So he's a special little talent that's flying under the radar a little bit, I think.
Yeah, that kick inside 50 across his body.
That pull kick, it was fantastic, wasn't it?
Oh, he's executed that a number of times over the last couple of years, really. His ability to hit a target across his body, inside 50, 45-degree angle. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, he's a ripper.
Yeah.
Serg, anything to add to that?
I was just tearing up then, thinking about McCreary when he just got those two clearances, then he's off the ground. I agree. I think I don't know what Paige means by a wild card. I think he's really good and would be one of those guys that you would rotate there. My only thought with Mitchell would be if you want to rest Pendles and maybe a side bottom, in the middle, or some other hard nut, like maybe Long. Yeah, I don't think you would give Longy a rest, but say he gets injured, you might want to bring him in to cover for those guys during that period, based on we're still 8 games?
Yeah, 8 games.
Yeah. So and you could easily put DeGoey in there as well if he's fit, or you could switch him with McCreary. Yeah, one ball in and another ball out. For short periods of time.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, at this stage of the podcast, I like to sort of open it up to the panel. So, have you guys got anything that you want to just chuck out there to discuss?
I've got a couple to the panel, if it's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
I'd like to hear from, obviously everyone around what everyone thinks. We've talked about the current crop, thinking about the unthinkable when stars like Steele and Pendles will hang up the boots. What do you think Collingwood needs going forward? What should they be trying to recruit in the next couple of years to bolster the team? Considering that I believe McRae, as long as he is the coach, doesn't want to rebuild. And who's that elusive golden goose or champion that we're going to recruit that everyone's talking about?
Nick's going to say Butters because he talks about it every single week.
How good would he be?
As you bring it up, Dermot, I'll reiterate it. Can we get look? This time last year, had you asked me the same question, I would have said a big body midfielder to help protect Dacos. So he's not getting battered around, so he can sit a metre or so off the drop zone and be fed out. So I would have said somebody like a Rowan. But given the emergence of Long, I don't think it is that as important now. What I'd be looking at is somebody fleet of foot, another midfielder who could play with Long and Dacos for the next 10 years. And if it was a perfect world, that person would be Zach Butters. Could we get him this year? No, we couldn't because we don't have the draft capital to get him. We simply don't have it. If he waited another year and became a free agent at the end of next year, we'd be a show. So in the ideal world, Serge, Zach Butters would be the guy I'd want, plus another key back. Maybe not top end. If you're forking out for Butters, you probably wouldn't be able to get a top end, but a bargain by a key back to allow, as Pat was saying before, to allow more to play further up the ground because I don't want more on the goal line. Because it stifles his natural attacking tendencies being back there, and he hasn't got a great record back there. So that's my answer. Zach Butters in a perfect world.
What about you, Pat? What have you got?
I guess we can kind of see with what the media. Well, I guess they're rumours, but there's some truth to them about how we're trying to go after the Bont, and we're trying to go after, Mick, as you're saying, Zach Butters and Raul, who's signed up to now free agency. So we're obviously wanting to build, a young up and coming bull. So that's like your Raul, but that could be Butters now that he's sort of up to free agency, and we've also got Long. I'd love Zach Butters, and obviously the longer he sort of doesn't re-sign, I guess it might happen, and everyone's friends with Nick Dacos, so who knows what happens there. But I'd love to get just a key. I don't know, like for me, Ben King or a key forward. I think that would be really good. I think Darcy Moore's still got a bit of time. Billy Frampton. Not off the top of my head how old he is, but I feel like Ben King. I put a post up a few weeks ago saying we might be getting Raul and Ben King. Obviously, 3 days later, Raul signs for 2 more years. But a pretty good inside mid to allow Dacos not having to do any of that. That would be a focus of mine, and a key forward.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, Pat. I was going to say Ben King as well. I'm all in because if I could just pick one position, like another midfield would be great, don't get me wrong. But if I had to choose, I'd go key forward because you look at our midfield, we've got Nick, we've got Longy, we've got Tom McGuan that's going to come through. Ed Allen hopefully can make it. So I feel like we've got enough young talent in that midfield. Whereas you look at our forward line, Myercheck's over 30, Membry's over 30, so is McStay. I feel like, Charlie West, he could definitely make it, but we don't want him to suffer the way that Myercheck has for the last 5 years and just have to do it all on his own. So if I had to choose, I'd choose a key forward and I'd go Ben King.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Paige?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. It's I think there's this false narrative around that Collingwood doesn't want to rebuild. I just think Collingwood knows how to build a list, and it is a little bit more obscure than the traditional way that 17 other clubs go about building a list. Collingwood back in, like I said earlier, those 3 traits that they look for are hiding in plain sight all across the country. And we've proven that we can take picks, players at, awkward picks that can come in and actually really add value to our list. So I think we're always going to be in this position where we're happy to be picking at 40, 50, 60 in a draft. And you're back in that. We're actually one of the most well-resourced recruiting teams in the country when you contrast that with some other teams. Collingwood have scouts, across every state league. They have scouts that specifically look at APS and AGS football. They have scouts that are obviously in the TAC Cup and then the talent programs underneath that, so the 14s and 16s. So they canvass pretty far and wide. And they're also open to these, non-traditional pathways as well, from whether it's athletes from other codes or, they're looking at the American pool potentially again, or Irish players. So I think they've really done a great job in terms of where they put their resources and their eyes, and you back them in. We're not going to be picking at the top end of the draft, you would think, for a little bit. And so anything outside the top 10, I say anyway, is a bloody lottery. Yeah. Nothing's ever assured, really. I mean, geez, we had 2 picks inside the top 10 and one never played and the other played half a dozen games and then that was it. So, if that had gone another way, what changes for us? You never know. But it just shows that really you're drafting anyway is a lottery. You can pick a player at the top of a draft pool unless you can develop them and they buy into your system and everything like that. They don't succeed anyway. So it's only an indication, the draft. It's not guaranteed. So if you're looking though, I'd love us to go and get a really like another good defender, another medium to tall defender. I really think Reef McInnes though is going to be that guy for us. I think he just reminds me so much of Tom Barras. He's very versatile as that defender. He's put on a lot of size. I've got hope for him. He looked pretty good at the start of the year against some good opposition. But you'd love to go and get a real, solid key back, reliable, that can hold down the firm for at least, the coming 5 years. Ben King, that'd be a bloody luxury, wouldn't it? You're always on the hunt for good midfielders, but I think as long as those players really play into our systems, we're going to be guided by that ultimately, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, what's the answer to your question, Serg?
Oh, well, I think you guys have covered it reasonably well, but I'd argue, I know what Paige is saying. We say it's not a rebuild, but it is. But the way we're doing it is...
We top up.
Yes, the top up, right? But you've got to top up with good players. And
100%.
The issue you got is, in my way of thinking, unfortunately, Scott Pendlebury is a once-in-a-lifetime GOAT. And still side bottoms not too far behind him. You had Dane Swan, who was cut. Yeah, he could have... He was just as good, a different sort of player. Would he have lasted as long? Probably not, but he was a different cat. I just don't... it's just going to be difficult to see and envisage who you would recruit or who would step up. You've got your Dacosses already that internally will become the next of obvious choice of champions. And most of them, both those guys, and particularly Nick, are already there. But... it's interesting. Can I just throw one more out there? And this is more out of curiosity in terms of what the guys think that we've got coming through. You mentioned, was I surprised about Rowan Steele going in there? I wasn't, and I am, because there's a young guy there called Parker who I think is a gun. And I'd like to find out from the panel what they think of him, what they thought of West, and we've discussed Steele, but what about Noah House and Joel Cochran?
Noah House, first off, Serge, I remember, I think it was the second day he was there, he need Howie in the back of the head for a specky, so...
already he's in the bad books, right?
So he was already welcome to Collingwood moment. So... I think Noah House is going to be a good player for us, and maybe he's that kind of key position forward because he's a big boy. So who knows with him? But Charlie West, I guess he was showing before, obviously, that stress fracture, or not stress fracture, but he's going to miss 5 to 6 weeks now. He just runs at it. His second efforts that I noticed on Saturday night were really good. And he kind of made that goal himself, right? When he got the ball, it fell to ground and he just willed his way and kicked it on the left. So I haven't seen much of Joel Cochran. So I can't sort of comment too much on Joel.
What about Will Parker?
Well, from what I've seen with Will, he seems, this is his first, I think this is his first full preseason with us since he was second.
Yeah, first.
I think it's his second.
Yeah, he came. Didn't he come? He came about February last year, just after the preseason. Yeah,
because he was in the BBL and then he came over, and so this was his first year. And he looks like his kicking is elite. So he's definitely a good user by foot. Again, it's just one of those. Like I totally forgot about Will Parker, but when you've got other players that are slightly ahead of him, and you're just trying to think, how are we going to get De Goey in, and how are we going to get Maynard in, how are we going to get Bo back in, and Bobby Hill didn't play last week, how are we going to get him in, and then Will Parker, who's an elite kick and finding a lot of the footy, can't get a look in. But I think he's got a future with us, definitely. He's shown at the level that he can compete, and he doesn't look lost. I think that's what you notice a lot about players when they come up. They're either overawed or they can really adjust to the tempo quite quickly. So I think Will's one of those. So I'm excited for his future.
Yep. I'll jump in, Dermot. Just on Will Parker. The other guys I can't comment on much because I don't get to watch the twos, unfortunately. But I heard an interview with Darren Buick about a year or so ago, and Buick was one of his junior coaches, Parker's junior coaches, basically just reiterating what Pat just said. He's one of the most elite kicks he's ever coached. And of the half dozen games he's played for us, he's looked comfortable in every one. I'm a big rap for him. I think he's got a future. And I think before he chose cricket, am I right in saying he was touted as a first round draft pick?
Yeah, he was. Yep.
Yeah. So now I'm a big rap for Parker.
Yeah, I quite like him too. There's not a thing about him I don't like. If anything that I don't like, it's we haven't seen more of him. But I mean, how do you get a game in this team and that backline is beyond me. But
it's like what you said before, Paige. Somebody's going to miss out.
Of course, absolutely. I think for me, there's a bloke who I love, and I feel like he's a bit of a forgotten man since he got injured, and that's Harvey Banger Harrison.
Oh, yes. Wouldn't he be handy right now?
He's not forgotten. No, this would have been a breakout year. Yeah.
He, what we saw from him last year was just tremendous, and it was a hockey stick kind of spike, wasn't it? In terms of just his trajectory just went bang. I think Harvey Wallbanger, as they call him, is just such a quality talent. He looks like that potential successor to maybe a Billy in the future. He's so good at ground level. He's got a nose for the goals, gets up the ground, makes good decisions, stuff off the boards, the stats that he doesn't, that won't come up on the stat sheet. Sorry. How many times we see him do those taps or pushing the ball into space for advantage.
The one that set up Dacos's goal against Carlton.
Yeah, perfect example. I mean, he's a footballer, and I feel like we're in this, we're in this weird sort of period in time in football where we're obsessed with these athletes and these guys with crazy athletic profiles, whether it's their sprint, their leap, they're 210 centimeters and gangly and all of that. But what is less in vogue is that natural footballer that is sliding a little bit more into obscurity and is being overlooked and underappreciated. And because we're seeing I guess in contrast, maybe flaws or what they don't have, as opposed to these athletic types like your Ilaro Smiths and those sort of little unicorns, if you want to call them that. But he's I love Banger. I've got a lot of love for him, and I'm looking forward to him returning to this side next year. And hopefully he's pulling on the jumper, and that jumper's got a gold logo on it.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
Anything else? Pat, Paige, anyone got any more questions that they want to chuck at the panel?
Are we going to lose again?
Are we going to lose again?
I think so.
Well,
Statistically, yes.
Yeah.
Do you guys believe you need a loss before finals? I don't, but
No.
I think just I've seen a few people say, "Oh, we're probably going to lose to Gold Coast and Adelaide, which is our two away." But a lot of people forget that we've won 10 in a row at Adelaide Oval.
yeah,
So
we don't lose there.
how that's going to. Well, who knows? But
I feel like if there's going to be anything, it'd be Gold Coast or it'd be something like, we absolutely, smashed and pantsed Hawthorn, but, they could just as easily,
Do the same to us,
potentially do the same to us because they've got a similar style. So,
It just can't be Carlton.
no, but if it is, I'll just throw this to you. When we lost to Carlton the second time in 2023, what happened?
Yeah, I know.
Premiers,
That's still.
I'll take that, Omen. I'll take
happy.
anything.
I'll take it, but I begrudgingly took the premiership. Yes,
It was a long train ride home.
Yeah.
Well, I've got one more question for the panel, and we speak of Carlton. We're playing them this week, the old enemy. Question without notice. What is your all-time favourite memory against Carlton?
Oh.
Do you want to go first, Paige?
Times, isn't it? The Billy Elliott goal when we kicked them out of the final.
Let me say, other than that one, that one's the obvious one. I think everyone would say it.
Okay. Can I just say, I don't know, Michael, you're probably too young. There was a banner that was raised by Collingwood. It was gigantic back in the 70s. And you know what it said? Happiness is beating the blues.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That has stuck with me forever and a day, right? So I don't care what game it is.
Let's get it done.
If we win, that's the best game.
Well,
I even get excited when they lose, and we're not even playing them.
there was a surge. There was a banner by Carlton in the late 80s, which at that stage they'd gone 8 ahead of us on the win-loss ratio, and that banner said, "Catch us if you can." Well, we have caught them, and they're about 5 up. So.
Have I told you guys that, and this might shock you, I've got 1 or 2 Carlton mates, and I've actually told them that I'll be becoming a full-time member because a lot of them are jumping off the bandwagon. I said, look, I'm happy to jump on your bandwagon because you guys have given me the best 30 years of my life. So why shouldn't I invest in you guys and continue to see you guys go down?
Sign Voss for another 4 years. He's doing a great job.
Well, I'll give you 2 quick ones, Dermot, and we'll head to the rest of the panel. And they're both 7-goal efforts by Peter Dacos. So 81 at Vic Park.
Yep.
On the early rounds, we won by about 51 points, I think, Serg. Dakes kicked 7. And then 84 semi-final out of Waverley, another 7. So they're my 2 highlights. And I also think Dakes kicked 6 on duel in a half of football. I think it was also 81 at Princes Park. But anyway.
Jeez.
Just to let you know, I think I'm still out at Victoria Park after that game. I don't think I've ever come back mentally.
You remember that game, do you, Serg?
Oh, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Because we didn't beat them a lot back in the day.
Back in those days, no. So there you go. How about the rest of you guys?
Michael, I think for your theme with 7, I think, wasn't it Mick McGuan that took 7 bounces out of the middle and kicked that beautiful goal against Carlton?
True.
A sunny day at the G, big Spices paper logo on the back.
Yeah, I was there that day. 94.
Yeah, I remember him doing got the ball, did a U-turn, then he was running towards the MCC members and then went to his right and did a balk and just...
He looked like a spooked racehorse, didn't he?
He did.
We hope to get Mick back on before finals, and that was a question I didn't get a chance to ask him. But I want to ask him, at what point did you think there's a goal here?
Yeah.
I reckon it was probably when Mark Fraser shepherded Fraser Brown off the ball. I reckon at that point, McGuan would have thought to himself, hold on, there's a goal here. Yeah. So I'll ask him that question if we get him on.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Mm. So what's your favourite memory of the Carlton Collingwood, Paige?
Oh, I still can't go past that game. That was great. But, another one that's quite nice too is, nobody kills Carlton like Carlton kills Carlton. And for Pendle's 400th game.
Oh, yes.
I think, watching Mitch McGovern have a crack after the siren and completely shit the bed out on the full. And see, for me though, when you really slow it down, and again, maybe it's just because I've got to see all the different camera angles. There's actually vision of Patrick Cripps being like, yes, let's go. We've got this one now. He's a goal kicker. It's in safe hands. He's done this before. You can see Paddy Cripps being like, it's all right. We got
the Blues
this.
are back.
We've got it, Blue. Can you smell what the Blues are cooking? Only for him to just absolutely slice the shit out of it and put it 10 rows back into the Shane Warne stand.
And what did you think about when Mitch McGovern had the ball? So many people thought...
I didn't panic. I was like, it's Mitch McGovern. He's got the
the
turning
Adelaide
circle
game.
of a freight train.
Yeah, the Adelaide.
Yeah, Paddy said at the Adelaide game.
Yeah. Thought about the Adelaide game, and so did I.
Honestly, I just went, nah. This guy is, I've never trusted him, nor have I rated him, and he's had only slight moments of relevancy. And I just thought, you're kicking from 48, 50 metres out, huge pressure. I don't know if it was one of relief or if it was one of Carlton have killed themselves again. They had an opportunity there and pissed it away, but that's always a nice one. Obviously, great for Pendles to get up in the 400th against the old enemy. So, still can't get past Billy Elliott though.
I couldn't get past the fact that that game. I don't know if you saw this, but there was a lot of Carlton supporters that thought they'd won the game. So that just confirmed in my mind that they're really stupid.
Well, I saw a quote during the week. What do Collingwood and Carlton supporters have in common?
Nothing.
They both hate Carlton.
That's true. That's true.
Very good.
All right. So if we don't have anything else to talk about, we will wrap it up.
Well, hang on. Can I do a quick fire?
Yeah, absolutely, sir.
It's like a make it or not make it, right? So I'm going to give you a list of names, and all you guys have got to go. Yeah, will they be here next year or not? Right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I like.
Okay. Ready?
Yep.
McRae.
Gone.
Yep. Definitely.
McInnes.
Stays.
Yeah, it stays. Yeah, he signed on, hasn't he?
Yeah. Harrison.
Stays.
Johnson.
Stay for depth.
Gone.
No. Gone for me, Serge.
Gone. Sorry, Paddy.
It's all right.
Sullivan.
Stays.
Cox.
Goes.
Yeah, goes.
He's gone.
Yeah, goes. Yeah.
Markov.
Gone.
Ooh.
Oh, that's the
sad one, but he's.
Oh, I reckon he could be the kind of guy that might be the last player on the list, and we just see after the trade period.
He's been there before, hasn't he?
Yeah, I'm gonna say stays.
Yeah.
Just.
Yeah.
I think he'll be the bittersweet one. Well loved, adored, good memories. He's
Couple more. I've got Steen.
Stays.
Oh yes,
Smith.
Yeah, stays. Yep.
Smith stays too.
Yep.
All right. I think that's. Can anyone think of anyone else? That looks like the list I had. All right.
Yeah. Oh, Tom Mitchell.
Oh.
Contract.
You reckon he will?
Depends. On a couple of months.
He's out of contract, isn't he?
Yeah.
Well, he's got about 8 weeks to prove that he can still play next year.
I'm gonna say gone. I personally, I would like him to stay. I'm gonna say gone because I feel like we are going to push 2 of 3 of these over 30s. I guess the recent reports suggest otherwise. But I have heard that maybe Cox and
Got to
Mitchell
start
are the
phasing
two.
some of them
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
And Cox and Mitchell haven't been in this team, or they have been, but very, very rarely this year.
Can I just throw this last one at you, and then I'll there's one more thing. I'll do this for Paige. Rupert Betheris, 99 to 203. He played 85 games and kicked 35 goals. I wish he had stayed a bit longer. My question is, if we get the ultimate at the end of the year, right? And to Paige's point, next year Harrison is wearing a Collingwood jumper with the gold logo on it. Is Scott Pendlebury and Steele side bottom playing?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He has to break the record, doesn't he?
And they'll get Pendles to the record, and Steele will play. He's not. What's he? Is he closer to 350 or?
He's 345 at the moment.
So he'll play 350 this year.
Yeah.
He's in striking distance of being a top 3 all-time player in terms of games, won't he?
Yeah.
So hang on, wait, he's already there. Actually, he'd be already there.
Yeah.
Sorry, he is. He's gone past Shorey. He's that kind of guy though. That's just football.
The only reason I mention that, and you guys make valid points.
How might
right?
go? How might?
Yes,
might hang
that
it
was
up.
the other one. Yeah.
How might go? I'm done here.
Because you'd want to retire. If we get the ultimate, that means Pendles has played in, and Steele Sidebottom have played in 3 Collingwood premierships.
Yeah.
That's
Wow, that would be amazing. That'd be better than his 450 games or whatever.
And they still might play potentially in a 4th if everything went well the following.
Mm.
Obviously, we're jumping quite ahead, but
nobody's been able to say that for 90 years.
Yes,
Premiership player.
And just so you don't get shocked, guys, and I don't know if anyone else has done it, because I live in Queensland, I've actually I've booked my flights for the grand final.
I don't blame you.
Serge, we live in
hotel.
We live in Tassie, Michael, and I've also booked my tickets for prelim and grand final weekend.
I hope that's not a jinx.
The prices go up too much if you wait.
It is ridiculous. Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not alone. I did it in 23. I booked about halfway through the year. And I didn't jinx it, so I was happy to do it again this year. Yeah.
Anyway, that's it from me. Look, thanks. Fantastic meeting, Paige and Paddy. Always a pleasure. You, Dermot and Michael, keep it up. I've got nothing else. I'll throw it up to the panel if you guys have got anything else that you want to mention.
No, nothing from me, boys. It's been fantastic, and thanks very much for having me and giving me the opportunity to come on and chat about the Pies and some good conversation.
No, it was good fun. A lot of fun. I'll leave you with this. I don't know if you guys have heard the news, but the bogeyman retired today, and I don't know how I feel about this. Dom Sheed. So
good bloody riddance. I don't want to hear the name again.
I stopped going to the psychologist after 23, so that was good.
Yeah.
Pat, can you give me that person's name? Mine's been. I've still been rocking up and down every time we play. I see those colours. It just
I don't.
Alrighty. Okay, so Pat, Paige, and Serge, thank you so much for coming on. You guys have been fantastic. Hopefully you will like to come on again in future panel show episodes. And for all the listeners out there, if you want to join in future episodes, then just message me on Instagram at IntoTheWoodsPod10 or on X at IntoTheWoodsPod. Michael and I will be back on Saturday for our regular show, so we look forward to doing it again then. See ya.